And we're live. What's up, YouTube? How's it going? It's Logan, the Metal and Beer Snob here. And first, before anything else, cheers. Beer. Cracking a beer. Guys, thank you all for joining. We're here to discuss death. All things death. And it's gonna be fun. I'm excited to do this. This is one of my favorite bands. I'm joined by my literal brother in metal, Marc. What's up? How's it going? Thanks for pitching in.
It's going good. I'm happy to be here, actually.
Yep. And Marc is actually abstaining from the alcohol tonight because it's true. Lent. So you got to give up. You got to give up something.
If this was before Mardi Gras, I'd be there.
Well, I totally messed up then on the schedule. I should have done it should have been a Mardi Gras stream. But we got some cool people in the chat real quick, and already I want to say, Marc, they want you to join the Heavy Metallurgy Discord server.
Oh,
I gotta get you a link. I told some people you were a power metal guy, and apparently they always need more power metal fans out there. So if you can hop in and
I can
keep the power metal conversation going. I won't be as ecstatic about it, but people
I'm
like
not the
power
most
metal.
talkative, so who knows? But
neither am I. Except when you get a beer or two in me. So
yes.
But anyway, excited to be here to talk about all 7 death albums, and then maybe a little bit extra here and there. As I said, this is a important band for me. Definitely very big in my road to getting into metal, and especially the more extreme metal subgenres. I mean, this is probably one of the first death metal bands to actually click with me. Like, getting into death metal, I think it was Cannibal Corpse scared the shit out of me. And then finally, when I worked my way up to death, that's when it kind of started to click a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, but before we kind of fully dive in, I want to do a disclaimer. So, doing like a discography ranking like this, there's a lot out there when it comes to death. Death is probably one of the most fun and like easiest bands to do a ranking for. There's tons of other better, more qualified streams and videos out there talking about and ranking this catalog. So, don't. I'm not trying to plagiarize from anyone or take away from anything, because there's a bunch of good ones. In fact, I know fellow YouTubers like Thralls of Metal and Jeff at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades have both done phenomenal death rankings and streams. So I'm kind of just excited to throw my name in the big pot of all of the death rankings. And I mean, this band is so important to me, and it's in my top 5 favorite bands that I couldn't pass up a chance to just talk about it. And also, another disclaimer: the death history and everything surrounding Chuck and all of his exploits is kind of complicated. It's a bit tough to dive into. He had, like, for each album, there's a different roster of guys, and it really develops a lot, and there's a lot of drama and history to this discography. We will not be trying to cover that as much outside of just trying to provide context. So there's definitely other things out there and other resources that can better, give you information about death and the history and what was going on with the members and with Chuck and everything at the time. Like, for example, there's this awesome documentary called Death by Metal, which I would highly recommend for anyone who hasn't watched it, but I'm sure probably most of you have. Marc, I'm coming over there.
Later.
I'm coming over there. We're gonna check it out. It's available. It's awesome, and it is a very honest take about like the goings on in the death camp. it like doesn't pull punches as far as talking about Chuck and his situation, and even the other members of the bands in Death. So I would highly recommend Death by Metal, the documentary, and but also recommend sticking in and watching the stream. So far, fucking 22 people. You know, we got Devin in here. Devin, I kind of agree, but history is what it is. Like, we'll definitely touch base on that. Brandon, cheers. James,
Cheers.
Overkill, Mike, and then I saw Marty in here somewhere. But cheers. There we go. All right, I know this is a big litmus test right here. Can you pull off the Death catalog? But cheers, guys. Thanks for joining in. And with that little disclaimer out of the way, I guess it's time for some introductions. So, like with this, I'm gonna let you go first, Mark, if you're all right with that. And what was your introduction to the band? How did you kind of get into Death,
Well,
or first hear about them?
it's a little story. So I heard about them from you.
I always enjoy this.
Death metal.
This is a loaded answer. A loaded question. I mean,
so one year I'm thinking to myself, what can I get you for your birthday? Right. So I'm browsing a used record store and I find this album for about $10, something like that. And I buy it, and then you already have it. So I kept it and listened to it. And that's how I got into Death. Basically.
Honestly, it's the best birthday present you could have given me.
Yeah.
Is to keep it and digest it. I admit it was startling when I one time I came over and basically saw that on your shelf, and it kind of did floor me, because up to this point, like I didn't see. I mean, like, you like some melodic death metal. You're an Amon Amarth fan. You've been a long time In Flames fan.
Yep.
But
for a lot longer.
Never like straight up like death metal, and that Human record is absolutely more intense than anything you would find on Clayman or Thunder of the Twilight God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's some people say death metal and melodic death metal are similar, but
there's a big separation there. I guess I'd put them under the same umbrella, but melodic death metal, and especially when we get into the In Flames camp, is definitely
early and In Flames and late In Flames is two completely different. You can watch our stream about that if you want. But
yes, there is a stream out there where we go painstakingly go through every single In Flames album. It was a big sacrifice, honestly. But
there's something about Goodwill.
Yeah, I like to shop at Goodwill, and I don't know if you do too, Mark, but I often give you my Goodwill finds. So
yes, this was, I think, Nice Price, probably.
Nice Price is like the used record store version of Goodwill. I really miss that place. If you're ever in Raleigh, North Carolina, Nice Price Books and Records is the place to be. So, all right. So my introduction to Death, definitely, it was around 2010, 2011. I mean, it was just one of those bands that I would stumble upon, like trying to dive into metal. And I think actually the first time I, heard them was watching a drum playthrough of Symbolic by Aquilus Priester. I don't know if any of you guys know, people who do drum covers and stuff on YouTube. He was a pretty big one, and he did Symbolic, and it sounded awesome. I was immediately kind of hooked. Like I for other death metal bands, I was kind of turned off a little bit initially. I typically would have to go through like a getting to know them phase and like a courtship ritual, and then I'd finally click like after a couple spins. But with Symbolic, I was, the riffs were good. the drum performance was phenomenal. I mean, Gene Hoglan on that is phenomenal drummer. And yeah, from there I listened to Crystal Mountain, and then finally the first Death album I actually did pick up in a used record store, not a Goodwill, but $5. Scream Bloody Gore, and this was definitely a lot easier to digest than I thought. Like, it's pretty thrashy. It was like after the first listen or so, I was immediately getting songs like Zombie Ritual and Denial of Life stuck in my head.
Ritual.
Yeah. That's like, he wrote good vocal hooks through screaming vocals. So, but then from there, I kind of lucked out. I think one of the biggest things to happen for extreme metal in the late 2000s or I guess early 2010s would be that Relapse were doing all the Death reissues. And people make fun of this in today's modern metal world because they've kind of, beat the horse to death and then some at this point.
Yeah.
But back in 2011, this was the first thing or the reason why I was able to actually pick up these albums was because of Relapse actually reissuing them. And my first one that I picked up was Human. So this is my second album. So I think this is a good introductory point. I definitely am glad that this was your introductory for an album. But yeah, I personally think that Relapse reissuing like the Death catalog is extremely important to metal in the mid 2010s. And I mean, Death would not be as big without these reissues. And I think I kind of give it a little bit of credit for like the death metal revival. Just like, there's so many like young kids my age who were not kids anymore, but this is our first exposure to Death as band and death, metal in general. And I think that's important, so Human was first, and then as they continued to reissue, I would pick them up as they would come out. So, which I think the order that you listen to these albums does help in how you appreciate them, but we'll kind of get there when we dive in a little bit deeper. I will say, we got Dennis. Cheers, Dennis. What if you're not lucky enough to be able to be around when the demos came out? We us fucking millennials have to have a way to get into death metal. We can't all be, have the demo come in a mailbox, which I'm sure was awesome. And cheers, man. Pick up Human, Wade.
Which
that
one?
Is, I believe he's talking about Human.
Okay.
Like, that's the one.
It's a good one.
Yep. Cheers, Dennis. All right, but from there, let's kind of dive in. So Chuck has been on the music scene for a while, like before Scream Bloody Gore came out. Like, Scream Bloody Gore came out in 1987. Chuck came out in you should get that one too, Wade. But Chuck was releasing demos and stuff like since 1980, 84, I think was the first one. And it wasn't initially by the name of Death, but by Mantis. And I did just recently pick this up in order to do this stream. And this is the Death by Metal demo, which, well, actually, this is just the Death by Metal compilation, which contains the demo, both version 1 and 2 of it, and then a rehearsal from 1984. Wow. So, yeah. This is pretty fucking raw shit right here. Did you get a chance to listen to it, Marc? I sent it to you.
I haven't listened to it.
It's like no production.
Wow.
Like, absolute screaming. It's kind of tough to make out some of the songs, but I might not be after listening to an album like Sound of Perseverance, listening to this is definitely like sandpaper to the ears. It was cool to hear early versions of tracks like Evil Dead though on here. I can't say other than that I retained much of this. Dennis, did you end up getting the Mantis demo as well as the other like Def demos? Because there are a couple out there. But there we go. So from there, well, I guess real quick, I do want to mention the lineup because this is actually a little important. We got, of course, Chuck, and in the demo, he goes by Evil Chuck Schuldaner, and Rick Ross and Cam Lee, and both of those gents go on to form a band called Massacre after this. So this one, I think Death is just such an influential band that even the people who are involved at any stage of it basically all went on to have very successful careers in death metal. And we'll talk about all of the comings and goings of these musicians because I do think it's important, to the music. So yeah, I agree. Who is on drums? Oh, Cam Lee is on drums on this one. It sounds pretty sloppy, I will say, but you got to start somewhere, right? And this is a solid place to start. But from there, we jump to 1987. And real quick, before I let Marc dive into this, Scream Bloody Gore, is it the first death metal album? I say yes. This is a topic that always has to be addressed at least a little bit, and I kind of feel like it sounds different from other albums that came around this time, like just recently I listened to this band called Slaughter and their album Strapato, and that has like pre-death metal elements, but the vocal approach and the lyrics and the intensity is something entirely different, even from Possessed Seven Churches, which is the competition typically. So, but weigh in if you're interested. I'm always curious, and let's dive into the first Death album, Scream Bloody Gore. Marc, you ready to take it away? We like to do spreadsheets around here, extra homework. So
I like to, yeah. We got do I need to be on the here it is. My wonderful spreadsheet.
Yes, which Marc painstakingly made these. Appreciate it.
It seemed like a long album, which it isn't, especially compared to power metal, but it's especially compared to the ones after it. I guess it is longer, or isn't it? It's like 10 minutes longer. I was trying to look at
you kind of have it correctly ranked because the initial album is only
43 minutes.
Well, the initial one is only 10 songs. It's 37 minutes.
Okay.
It ends at Scream Bloody Gore, and Beyond the Unholy Grave and Land of No Return are like bonus songs.
Yeah, I could
have kind of been included on every album since.
I can just see what it's like without this. That doesn't change actually.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Oh, I do see where you're at here.
It's interesting. Some of these might get higher on further listens because this is probably the least listened of the albums, right? For me. Because I basically listen to it if a song comes on in my playlist, but I don't usually listen to the album. This week I've been catching up. We start off with Infernal Death. It's a lot of the choruses on this album and a lot of the vocal work is rough for what I like. And I don't mean like gruff or growly. I mean like it's very basic, if that makes sense. Which, I mean, it is one of the early ones. Like even later on in the albums, Chuck is a lot more complicated with how he sets up the
Songwriting.
hooks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some of them are sort of, I can't tell if I like them or if they're annoying. Like Zombie Ritual is like, Zombie Ritual. Like it's that one I could change it later, but there are a few sixes here that are probably because something about it puts me off that I might like later on re-listens. So just fair warning, but it could probably go up a bit in terms of overall ranking. I really like Mutilation, by the way.
That's the song that you like? That's like got the most
Scream Bloody Gore.
Intense like
but it's
death metal chorus. It just it just builds on itself.
Yes, the building was good. These are all basically notes. I listen to it. I write the notes down as I listen to them.
Need to give Scream Bloody Gore a 9.
Scream Bloody Gore's a 9.
At least there's a 9 on there.
And I could definitely see all of these going up by 1 or more on re-listens. But this is just basically my first, I guess my second in-depth pass, because I listened to the album all the way through earlier in the week on a car ride, but I didn't write anything down. So that's my ranking, basically. These are the numbers.
So how does everything stack up for you? I mean, I guess we see it down here, and
yeah,
you like the album art at least.
Oh, the album art is awesome. Some of these aren't quite accurate because I finesse them to try to get them into the overall album ranking that I want, right? But album artwork is definitely, I could honestly put like a 10 there because I sort of just like this artwork. Maybe this
it's fucking awesome.
The quotation marks around Scream Bloody Gore is a bit goofy, but I like it. And the logo of Death is and always has been awesome.
It's one of my favorite logos in metal, period.
Mm-hmm.
And where would you rank it then? Because we're doing we got to do the full ranking. We'll revisit it at the end, but as we're going through, what number are we talking here?
Let me go to my second monitor.
Oh yeah, we're fancy. We got 2 monitors.
It's 7.
This is your least.
This is my least.
So I will
it's also
say
my least listened, but
I will say one of the reasons why I was excited to do this with Marc is just because, I mean, as I said, you're not a death metal guy, so
yes,
this is a little bit new. So I'm just interested in, excited to hear your take on these albums and what you like and what you don't like. And I was definitely curious about Scream Bloody Gore because of the songwriting is so straightforward. I was wondering if it could click with you easier, But
maybe the songwriting being
alas,
so
not
is why it didn't click. But I will say, Death is pretty much. I did like that Evil Dead, and the themes of it were great. The album,
just simple horror films, right?
Something I wanted to say as a preface, which I sort of said earlier. Death is pretty much the only death metal band I would say I like, right? So, besides maybe Nile, what is that? I don't even know if they're death metal, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
They are.
Nile. I
Yeah.
would give
Okay.
them the
Good.
technical death metal tag, which is like a level
Technically,
up.
they're technical, but so this is definitely a death metal. Is not my wheelhouse.
Which is, as I said, that's what I'm here for.
Hmm.
We're breaking through, new firsts for Marc, which is exciting. Let's see. For me, so to introduce the lineup, I should have started with the lineup, but it's just two people, and this is an interesting um, preface. So Chuck actually went over to California for some reason. Maybe he felt like he could launch his career as a musician better out there. But he was in California and met up with some of the dudes who would go on to form Autopsy, specifically Chris Reifert, and that ends up being the drummer for Scream Bloody Gore. So it's basically Chuck doing all the instrumentation and the vocals, and then Chris laying down a relatively straightforward but still awesome and badass drum performance on here. So it's a cool little asterisk to the Death legacy having Chris be on this because, outside of this, he's not on any other Death album and he stays in California and does his own thing with Autopsy. And watching that Death documentary, it's kind of funny to hear him talk about it because he's like Chuck blew in and blew out of California basically, and called him up from Florida and was like, "Hey man, come out and we can start the band back together, or keep going doing what we're doing." And Chris was basically like, "That's not how it works for me." So it's an interesting what if kind of scenario, like if Chuck had stayed out in California or if Chris had moved to Florida. And for me, I just want to show off the physical media real quick because it's all about this. Let me see if I can get my layouts right. There we go. So this is the first CD I got. And this is actually the only CD I own that is not a Relapse reissue, not counting Symbolic. So this is Century Media, and this is like one of my favorite probably physical CDs. It's like got a quad fold. Like it flips up. We got Drink from the Goblet of Gore in the middle. And then, all of our little zombie dudes. And then finally, cool band photo too. And then finally the CD down there. So I absolutely love
what was the band?
This pressing.
Who are those people in the band photo? Because you said there were two.
Yeah, actually I did. This actually looks like Rick Ross and Cam Lee.
Okay, so that would be
from the demos, but I could be wrong. I'm open for interpretations, and it's all subjective. Once again, I have never run across a combat pressing of Death in the wild. I would be, and definitely not one that I can afford. So, you guys, yeah, I'm ready for this ICP deep dive y'all are gonna do.
ICP.
Oh man, the Insane Clown Posse, dude.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then to age myself further, here is the Relapse reissue, which, I don't mind colored vinyl. This one is especially cool. Do you know what this makes me think of, Marc?
There are two things I'm thinking of, but I don't know what you're thinking of.
For me, Icy. Those.
Ices. Yeah,
those.
That was one of them.
Shakes with the polar bear.
Yeah.
No.
I'm envisioning the two tanks that are twirling around side by side in the stores, where they are making the high seas or the ices.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's a frozen slushy machine.
The other one was a Pokeball. That was the other thing I was thinking of.
Got to collect them all, I mean.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think that probably hurts the argument for buying colored vinyl, but
I like more like splatter or rather than
Oh,
like two-tone colors. I don't know.
we will get to some splatter for sure. Because Relapse, they love to do the splatter and
They
the
do.
butterfly and all that shit.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, this is to me the first death metal album. It's absolutely ripping. I think it's a perfect bridge between thrash to death metal. I mean, it definitely has the thrash metal influence. You can't ignore it. Other bands helped to lay the groundwork, but Death basically finished the road and paved it in this millennial's opinion. So I mean, it's it's probably incorrect, but there it is. I think, as I said before, like the intensity of the vocals and the songwriting and just the overall package of like gore and horror themed everything makes it death metal. And I think the riffs are a bit chunkier, as well. And when they slow down the songs also. So I think the songwriting here is great. There's definitely some tracks which are more straightforward, like they got the just shout the name of the title over and over again. But then at the same time, there's songs that are a little bit more in depth and have different ways of being hooky and getting themselves stuck in your head. So I will also say this, it appeals, especially back then, it appealed to my juvenile and edgelord instinct with like the lyrics, like
Yes.
we got tracks like Sacrificial. Did you enjoy the chorus on that one, Mark?
I don't even remember the chorus, to be honest.
Okay.
Sorry. Is it
It's
sacrificial?
Sacrificial cunt is the chorus.
Oh,
And it's, yeah.
I think I may have thought that was God, actually.
Oh, that'd be cool too. Yeah.
But
And then on Regurgitated Guts, like the opening lyrics are, there was a preacher, he hanged himself, went straight to hell. I was like, oh, that's fucking evil. And then just, hearing tracks like Evil Dead, this is around the time I was starting to get into horror films, and Evil Dead was the first one, and that was phenomenal. So yeah. So let me get my ranking up here.
oh boy.
Oh boy, here's the spreadsheet. Let's see.
Hooray.
So you can see there's some double digits and nothing below an 8. So I truthfully love everything on this album. It was definitely a immediate hit for me, and the simplicity of the songwriting and how just catchy everything was. I had no issue getting into it, back in the day as an early death metal album. Infernal Death, what a fucking opener. Like, just that riff that comes in and him screaming over it, and before finally like kicking in, and it's quick. And Zombie Ritual, though, Mark, you got to listen to that song again.
Ritual.
It's
It's the only one I
catchy.
remember, to be honest. But
Exactly.
I just remember being put off by it when I
And
listened to it.
this is the line right here. Drink from the goblet of Gore. It's fucking awesome.
Maybe the cheesiest album by Death.
Well, yeah.
I think it's
They're
awesome too, but
that's one of the reasons it's so good.
Yeah.
Like, I do agree. I think it's the blueprint for just all the gory side of death metal that came after. Like, I don't think you would have Cannibal Corpse and any of the gore drenched. Well, Carcass did exist, but still, this was very influential.
Death went more of a societal or psychological death route later, rather than gore. But
yes, that is one of the other reasons why this album is so high in their discography. This is the only one where they're legitimately having fun, like having just fun topics, talking about edgy teenage horror movie stuff, and just being over the top, for the sake of being over the top. Because honestly, there's a change even with the next album, and then it keeps
Yes.
going and like multiplying. But yeah, this is your zombies and blood and gore and everything, and then after that, we're on to more adult like topics. So, hey, cheers, Jeff. What we got? Ah, I
Never heard of him before.
yeah, we'll discuss the proto punk band at the end of the stream. I think. Um, it could be that Chris had an influence on the lyrics because
Oh.
Autopsy, for example, stayed in this lane.
Hmm.
Has basically been in this lane their whole career. So, you know, who knows? But I
That
think
does
just the
make sense.
fact that Chuck was willing to take pictures like this, he was all on board with the death metal, just craziness back then. Like, I wonder how old he was.
Chuck?
Yeah, Chuck, for when this came out.
19,
You want to do some math? I'll keep going through here, but
like 22 or something. Or is this 87? When did this come
yeah,
out?
87.
20? Is that how old he was? When was he born in 67? Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, if he was 67, that sounds right. But I will say that "Denial of Life" is also another very catchy song that was definitely used to promote the release of the Relapse edition. I'm a big fan of Regurgitated Guts and Baptized in Blood, like those back to back. But Baptized in Blood specifically, I had to give a 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's very bass heavy, and it actually to me has a bit more of like songwriting prowess than is what is displayed on the rest of the album.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say Torn to Pieces is a bit on the simplistic side where it's like I'm not quite as into it. And funny enough, Scream Bloody Gore, I actually always end up forgetting on the album. That's always
Oh,
the song where I'm like, I don't remember it as much as the others. So I thought it was funny that you gave that one a 9.
well, all the numbers are from when I'm listening to the song. So
Yeah.
it's about how long I remember the song and more about how I feel during it. Right.
And I'm not trying to berate you because there's no wrong answers here. But Evil Dead is a 10 out of 10 song. That song is so fucking good. It is a perfect song. It's so simplistic. It's just like the opening, like haunting melody and everything. And then, the chorus riff and the chorus of him just saying, Evil Dead.
Dead. Yeah.
Evil. And he changes it up
Dead.
every time. Like, he was already messing with like his vocal lines, and he would say the same words, but he would change up how he would say it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already proof that he was a good songwriter and frontman, I think, on just the debut. So Evil Dead is a 10 out of 10 and my favorite song on the album for sure. And the fact that it was basically one of the first songs that they wrote. I mean, it's on the Death by Metal demo,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And it really didn't change that much. It just means it's such a good song. But the fact that it's so simple but stands the test of time it's a testament to how good that opening section is and the ferocity of the rest of it. So big fan of Evil Dead. So I will say I'm kind of. It's always funny doing these spreadsheets because there's what I think, and
just do what.
Then there's what the spreadsheet tells me I thought, and it's often different. So, for me, it says that the track average is like a 9 to a 9.1, which I can get behind. This is my favorite album cover, definitely a 10.
Understand.
This is my favorite Ed Repka album cover, and probably one of the best covers of the 80s. I just love all the figures and stuff, and there's a lot of details just all across it. Production's an 8. Album construction, I think it's a 9. It opens big and good, and then it closes strong too with Evil Dead being there. And for me, it flies by. But like I knew that Beyond the Unholy Grave and Land of No Return were not necessarily a part of the original album, so I never necessarily included it. But I do dig both of those songs. So it spits out that my overall score is a 9.05. But
I mean, 05, 05, 04. This is like a difference of 03. That's not even a.
No, I mean, I disagree. So in my head, the score for this is like a 9 point. It's like close to a 9.95. It's like a 9.
Okay, 9.5.
It's like a 9. It's like almost a 9.5. Probably a 9, a 9 quarter to a 9.94, I would say. But this is just detailed nerdy shit that only I care about. But it's so for the overall ranking for me, I actually ended up having this one as, let me see, number 5, which
number
is
5.
Yes, so this is like a 9 point something, but I ranked this number 5. Shows you just how much
we're definitely going to have to bring out the 0.05s to like
exactly
to place everything exactly.
Yep, that's yep. And it's all basically uphill from here. So, cheers, Dennis. And from here, we go to 1989. So Chuck does move back to Florida, old sunny Florida, and he gets like a full band of pretty well established, or people who are going to be well established musicians. We've got Rick Ross coming back from the Mantis demos on guitars. Terry Butler, who is going to be well known, and I guess was already kind of well known at this time for being an Obituary on bass. So, and then Bill Andrews on drums. And Bill Andrews is actually also known for being the drummer of Massacre. So Massacre is basically Rick Ross, Bill Andrews, and Cam Lee. All were in death at some point. So, yeah. Leprosy. You ready? You ready to tackle this one? This is
ready as I'll ever be.
Hey, that's the spirit.
Let's see. There we go. It's higher ranking. I thought there was something I noticed when I was listening to it. I thought the production was worse. That may have been the YouTube. What I got, right?
Yes.
Was just worse. So this could be, 8 or something. I don't know. I'll bring it up a little bit. But it's actually pretty consistent. Starting song was great. Blistering pace, good starting song. I think this might be. I was noticing more solos, or more like a fancy fretwork, I guess, maybe. On this album. Leprosy is good. Born Dead, I think that's the 7 is probably mainly because it's a shorter song, and there's some tendency I have is to rank shorter songs lower because they don't do as much to grab my attention during the runtime, right? What that
you sold out for a second. Yeah, you said you like shorter songs, or you don't like shorter songs?
I typically prefer longer songs because you can do more interesting things. You can also be like plotting and boring, but Death doesn't have a problem with that, so that's not an issue. Forgotten Past, Left to Die, both those are good. I like the screams on Left to Die. That's the one he screams once in the first minute or so, and then another time towards the end. But I like those additions. I was noticing something that'll become a lot more common later is you have the different tempo or the different pace that he switches into to do, I guess, forget what the terms would be. Like when you do the break, when it breaks the time signature, I guess, to a different one.
Like a transition, or like the
like when it goes, it's the chugging start, and then he goes to like a pull the plug, and it's like, why do I live this way? Where it switches from the main portion of the song to a sort of different. You know what I'm talking
like
about?
they're just different sections, you mean? Like the songwriting kind of breaks it up, like there's
rather than just having the whole song be
one pace,
there's
one
more
tempo.
There's more variety in the
absolutely
in the pacing of the songs. Pull the Plug is a 10. It's a good song. I like the riffs. I like how it transitions into the chorus. And a lot of these are honestly pretty good for like just singing. Open Casket is good. I like the drums. There's pretty much always a death song where I just love the drums on it. On every album. Primitive Ways reminds me the most of the first album.
Yes. That is absolutely a callback.
Remember. Choke on It. I think he says chocolate. That's just my take.
Chocolate.
Which it's always good. So that's it. It's a 8/8, mainly 8s, 1 or 2 7s. Pull the Plug stands apart from the rest of it, in my opinion.
This is quite the improvement, Mark. I am impressed here.
Yeah.
We got the 8s
and I also like the album artwork too. It's this leper right here in his little leper colony in the desert.
Yeah, another great Repka cover.
And
definitely
this
one of my favorites.
I'm just going to go down to the total ranking. It's 6. It's
okay.
Number 6.
So we're just improving. Wow,
yeah.
Look at this. So we're improving every single time.
Yep.
Yeah, let me get situated here. Yeah, man, Leprosy, to me, this is the end boss of 1980s death metal. Like, this is what I would pick to show someone what death metal was between 87 to like 91.
Mm-hmm.
It has this dry and like evil production. The guitar tone and drums sound absolutely perfect. Like, I think the drum performance by Bill Andrews on here might be one of the highest reasons why I end up liking this as much as I do. And even Chuck's vocal performance is just perfect. There are so many like death metal albums out there where you're like, what? What is that? What are we singing about? And then this comes through and is just, you can hear basically everything he's saying. And the lyrics have definitely, progressed from Scream Bloody Gore. We've moved on from zombies and the Evil Dead and, suicidal priests to a little bit more realistic. I mean, there's still a lot more horror themed stuff, but like Pull the Plug is about, someone on life support. Like, that's pretty fucking real. Leprosy. Leper colonies, and we're not being super creative there, but even tracks like Primitive Ways and Forgotten Past are more like about human nature and like what lays beneath and what lays hidden behind the facade of humanity. Yeah, even Choke on It is just such a pissed off and vicious fucking song on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great track. So yeah, I do think you kind of nailed it with like the songwriting here. It's a giant step up on it. It's the Scream Bloody Gore songs are very much one note. Like we get in, you get to the chorus, we might change up the tempo or the key and stuff a little bit like halfway through the song, or it might just even just blaze through all at the same tempo and speed. But on here, each track has these different sections and even builds within the track. I know Dennis mentioned it earlier, but Open Casket is
Mm-hmm.
it's potentially my favorite song. It goes back and forth between that one and Pull the Plug, but it has this build towards the end where Chuck is screaming open casket, and it's fucking awesome. So yeah, big fan of the songwriting on this album, and I think it does help to move it forward. Let me hit my spreadsheet real quick. Let's see. Hey,
What the numbers say.
There's nothing below a 9 on this album. Everything is a 9 and above. It's the reason why there aren't more 10s, I think, is just because the tracks don't stick with me as much outside of the album. Like the ones that do are definitely Pull the Plug and Open Casket right there in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Pull the Plug might be the ultimate death metal song. Just it's extremely catchy.
It is very
extremely good. Like it's got these multiple sections. It's slow and driving, but then it has a quicker, faster section in the middle. If I were to select one song to represent all of death metal, it'd be a tough choice for me between Pull the Plug off of this album or Override the Overture off of Ever Angel. So that would it's that kind of song. It's perfect. Open Casket, as I said, is a very close second. To kind of touch on the other tracks, Leprosy is a great opener. It definitely hints at a bit more progressive style songwriting. And yeah, it's just a cool 7-minute long opener that doesn't feel like 7 minutes. Forgotten Past is probably the catchiest song on the album outside of Pull the Plug. So great track there. And then I love Primitive Ways. That was actually the last song to click with me. Initially, I was kind of put off by it. But the fact that it's so close to that Scream Bloody Gore sound and is like probably their punkiest song I think they've done. Just kind of nails it. And we already talked about Choke on It. What a great fucking track. So album art is great. I actually have let me see if we can see it. We got the flag right over there. So perfect.
Oh boy.
Great enough to hang on the wall. Yeah. So production quality is a 9, album construction is a 9. Your algorithm gave me a 9.15. For me, it's closer to like, man, I actually have this thing at like a 9.8, just because of how, maybe not a 9.8.
Very
like
close to 10. Very close.
A 9.75. It's just such a well-constructed death metal album. Like I have really no complaints for it, into my ranking, it's my number 3. So that's
number 3. Very nice.
And I know we got some people dropping in. Evan, what's up, man? Cheers. There were some rankings here earlier too. 3 for Dennis, 2 for Overkill. I think it was number 4 for Frosty. And someone gave it number 1. Oh well. But cheers, guys. And William, what's up, man? Tony, too. Courtney, cheers. Thank you all for joining. Definitely contribute all your thoughts and opinions as we go along. But so there we go. That was 1989 with Leprosy.
2 years later.
Or no, 1988 actually. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
November 1988. So then we go 2 years later to 1990.
Mm-hmm.
February 16th, 1990. I'm gonna introduce the lineup and then let you go and use the restroom. So the unfortunate part about drinking is you got to take a piss every like 30 minutes. So good, Mark. I'm glad you don't have to. You can hold down the fort for me.
But sad now.
You too could be doing this, but alas. So spiritual healing is actually the most consistent, I think, of the lineups. We got Chuck, of course, and then Bill Andrews stays on drums. Terry Butler stays on bass. And actually on spiritual healing, he actually does record the bass. So forgot to mention for Leprosy, supposedly in the studio, Chuck ended up having to record the bass due to Terry having like performance anxiety and stuff like that. But I guess he's fully here on spiritual healing. And then the other addition is James Murphy on guitar, which is kind of pretty cool because James Murphy, he's ended up on an Obituary album called Cause of Death, which is my favorite Obituary. And then he had a band called Disincarnate, which is pretty cool as well. So the presence of James Murphy here is pretty neat. But I'm gonna pull you up and let you go.
It's some basic words. I don't have as many descriptions as I did on the previous ones. It's only 8 songs, but they're very good. I do like them. The artwork, I'm not the biggest fan of, but the songs themselves are all great. I think the one, Living Monstrosity, is an awesome song. I like there's some musical scales they do in it, and there's some fretwork that goes on that I find quite interesting. The point of the song is interesting too, of course, since it's about I guess a baby born to someone doing cocaine, a mother who's on crack, and I guess the baby's born with half a brain and no fingers or something. That's what those are the lyrics I remember. Chuck is continuing to improve his vocal performance, I think, from even Leprosy, which was pretty good already. Altering the Future, another good vocal performance. Defensive Personalities, I like too. It brings back that some screams, which I honestly don't know if, like, I would consider them like classic elements of songs, but like the screams that he does. But I don't know. Spirit Crusher is a great song.
Spirit.
When we get to the top 5, you might.
Oh my God!
Up there, but Defensive Personalities, I would call it a classic scream that he does in the song, as he does it in Leprosy too. But I honestly don't know at the time whether they were doing screams like that during the songs for death metal. If that was like, well, I mean, he's making death metal, you know. How typical was that, I guess?
Honestly, I do think Chuck had a pretty good range for death metal in this time and era to do like the higher pitch. I think in the early 90s, the lower was preferred. You had bands like Obituary and Deicide and even like Malevolent Creation going for more lower guttural screams. And yeah, the higher pitch, I think, was definitely a Chuck thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's defensive personalities, which defensive. I always like how he sings it because he has a certain like almost lullaby-ness to how he says it, like personalities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or living monstrosity, or any of these. The ones where he says,
like he enunciates
mm-hmm.
like a hook even in how he says it, you know, to make it
Yes.
more interesting than just saying living monstrosity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You get the inflection.
Within the Mind, I give it a 10. I remember liking it. I can't actually remember any lyrical hooks from it right now, but
It's that water you've been drinking.
Yeah, I said rhythm specifically, which means it must have had a good rhythm. I don't remember it, but spiritual healing is good. Low Life, I give a 7. I don't even write what I was thinking at the time, so
that's fair, honestly.
I don't remember it. Genetic Reconstruction, I love too. It might be a 10 as well. I might need to listen to it more. I might need to pull this out.
See, look, Marc's got it on. Marc's got it on physical.
Yeah,
we got the first death metal album Marc owns.
His vocal cadence is definitely one of the good things. Like, I like it, how he says these words. Killing Spree is good. This one is one of those that I'm also sort of iffy about where it should be, because it's like an 8.6 down here, right? 8.06. I mean, up here it's like from the songs themselves. It's 8 and a quarter stars.
You
right?
didn't like the album cover. You gave it a
No,
6.
I don't. I don't like the album cover at all. It's just
what's wrong with it, dude?
It's probably all the human faces are just like
Repka had a
maybe it's
I don't like how he drew human faces. I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
He was better at like the skulls and the explosions and stuff, or faces mutilated by leprosy than actual human faces.
It's very blue, and I don't really like that. Well, maybe it's sort of like a juxtaposition, but it's very blue and light, right? So it's sort of juxtaposed against like the anger in the face, and he's a Baptist preacher or whatever doing a spiritual healing, right?
Yeah, it's right either right after or right before he does the snake handling, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of enjoy like the colors are bright and they're all very like non-evil or menacing colors, but there's something unsettling about it to me. So when we get to my ranking, I definitely enjoy the album cover just because of the feel of it, and I think it highlights the transition to what Chuck starts to sing about, which is more of like the two faces of humanity, right? There's like you could be supposedly doing good deeds, and really this is all what spiritual healing the song is about.
Yeah.
But
practice what you preach. Doesn't he? Yeah.
That's what he says. Yeah, that's the hook, man. Which, that's a favorite of mine, which I will get to. So where does this fall for you then? Are we
numero 5?
Do we keep going up
one step by one step? Yeah.
Marc's keeping it straightforward. I like it. I wonder what number 4 is going to be. Probably not the one I think, though, actually. Let me see. All right, so yeah. I don't have any fun splatter. I was trying to show all my vinyl off too. I forgot to do that for
Do you have
Leprosy.
vinyl of all of them?
I do all but Symbolic, which I will get to. But this one's not a splatter. We're just talking black vinyl. But I want to highlight just the Relapse reissues because I personally think they're awesome. I mean, like we got this is like the
That's pretty
concept.
cool.
This is the concept art on the back,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. Like I like the details of this. Like we got this
Very
lady.
detailed.
We got the lady here with the she has a
touching her
badge that
Bible.
says
Oh,
a badge that says I found it, and she's got the Bible, and you got the money in the preacher's
yes,
pocket
I like
right
that.
there.
The money in his pocket.
Yep, and yeah, just I guess the faces are a little cheesy, but then at the same time, like that is a menacing face right there. That is not
Mm-hmm.
a pleasant, good doer kind of face. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the album cover. And yeah, the other thing I will mention this because I forgot to previously. The Relapse reissues come with so many like extra details and credits. Brendan, thank you for reminding me. Like it's got just a bunch of. This is for all of them, so I really recommend people picking them up if you're like a big Death fan. It's got write-ups from the musicians. Like here's a full page of notes from James Murphy talking about it, and another like 2 pages from Terry Butler. So I think these are just awesome. Like these are not reissues done just for money, at least not originally. Like there's a lot of care and detail that went into them, and I think when you buy it, you get what you pay for. So I will stand by the Relapse reissues. So there we go. Getting into my take on this album, there are 2 albums in the Death discography that I can't help but opening up the conversation with. It sounds like I'm disappointed with the album, or like it's a step down. But to me, Spiritual Healing feels the most similar of all the Death albums. Like as they move along in their discography, Death transforms and grows so much album to album. Like they progress significantly, and it's very noticeable. Spiritual Healing, that progression feels the smallest, and it feels the most like a transitionary album to me. Like listening to this one, it sounds the closest like to Leprosy than any other album does in their discography. Like when we get to the next one, holy shit, we're talking about an entirely different band. It's crazy. But this one, it does feel like the same band that recorded Leprosy, and I think that's because it is the same band. I mean, the only difference is we have James Murphy on guitars instead of Rick Ross, and you can definitely feel his addition. But I think the main reason why this feels similar to Leprosy is because of the rhythm section of Bill Andrews and Terry Butler, especially the drum performance of Bill Andrews. And I'm a big fan of what Bill did for both Leprosy and Spiritual Healing. But at the same time, I could see why Chuck might have thought it was grounding him, or maybe holding him back from doing what he wanted to do. Like when we get to Human, Marc, I don't think this drummer could have recorded Human and played the drums that are on Human. That is to me outside the realm of reason. So because of this, I feel like uncharacteristically this is a Death album which kind of has growing pains on it. Like it has them trying to grow, but then at the same time they still sound like they're the same band that made Leprosy, which for any other band would be great and perfect, but for Death that just jumps light years from album to album, it felt weird to me. So I will say that another thing that might cause my feeling of iffiness towards this album is this is actually the last album that I ended up picking up. I don't know why. This out of the 7, this is the 7th one that I purchased. So I've had the least amount of time with this one. That being said, though, I do like and I honestly love this album, and it's only because of the discography of Death that I'm like given the caveat here, because this is a phenomenal album. I think let me see. The songwriting is even more varied than Leprosy. There's very much more slower tracks, and then the faster, more intense songs as well. And then they do start to get more into like the progressive leaning elements. Like there are sections that do make me think of Human on here, whereas for Leprosy, yeah, entirely different band. But there's like some guitar work on here that like, oh man, this sounds like it could be from some tracks on Human, like the guitar solo or like the guitar um like middle interlude in the title track on Spiritual Healing definitely has that vibe, and certain songwriting choices do. Speaking of songwriting, the lyrical elements have grown a lot here. Like he's definitely talking like almost socially, like doing a social critique with tracks like Altering the Future. He's talking about abortion and the death penalty and all this stuff, And Mark, you highlighted genetic reconstruction, which I'm glad you did, because
Yes,
I agree. That shit's relevant. We're getting near the genetic reconstruction era potentially. So I think lyrically this is the most varied Death album, and one that I enjoy. And honestly, you see a lot of the different lyrical themes on this one.
there's drug addiction and
There's drug addiction. They're talking about like the ailments of the mind on here, like defensive personalities within the mind. And then they're talking about just human on human violence with, Spiritual Healing, Low Life, Killing Spree, tracks like that. So I actually really like the variety, and to kind of get to my track by track. So this one for me, I'm for some reason Living Monstrosities never clicked with me as much as I would like it. Maybe it's like the lack of a proper hook to get me to dive in. I like the lyrical content and like kind of the ferocity that it opens up with the album, but it's still an 8, of course. Altering the Future, I think, is a great track. Good vocal line from Chuck on that one. Spiritual Healing is my 10 out of 10 song on here. This is like just well done songwriting. This is the closest they get to, where they're going to go on Symbolic and, albums past that. There's a lot of different sections to it, and I love the line, practice what you preach, speak no more lies. And then it just comes in with that riff. It's a fucking awesome song, man. It's just so many killer sections. I could see it starting that way of Chuck's songwriting where it just jumps, right? Where it feels maybe like it's different songs in one. I've always enjoyed that about Chuck and
like that.
Death's songwriting, where it's just you never know where it's gonna go. It's just, so it's a 10 out of 10 for me. And then already talked about genetic reconstruction. I think Killing Spree might be the weakest song for me on the album. I still give it an 8, but like it doesn't feel as cohesive and as part of the album as the other tracks do. Already talked about the album art, gave that a 9. Production, I think, is perfect for what it is. And then the album construction is an 8. Like they could have used maybe a better opener, better closer, but we're nitpicking.
That's the point.
For me, this is, I actually 100% agree with the overall score. It's an 8.5. And it actually ranks the same as you, number 6. And
that's not this.
Didn't you give this? No, you gave this number 5. Okay, sorry. Number 6. Which this album actually has grown on me. I did a death ranking a couple years ago. Just
Mhm.
like wrote it down, And this is at my least favorite, but it has grown on me, and I've started to enjoy the deeper cuts on here, like altering the future and genetic reconstruction more than previous. So this has grown on me a lot, but I think it'll probably always stay at number 6 for sure. But cool album. Let's see. Still 30 plus people here. Cheers, you guys.
Ooh,
This is a number 2 album for Dennis. Number 2 for Frosty.
Number 2.
See, if you're a fan of like the earlier stuff,
Because
Yeah,
it does
Mhm.
veer off, or they add more elements of other music, maybe, or I don't know how you would describe it. More it's more technical, I guess, in the future ones.
yeah, I think this is the last one where it's not overtly technical. Like there is technical proficiency on here, but it's not the focus of it. It's not what's driving the album, and instead it's still straightforward, like just death metal. Like if I were to give a genre tag to this, it's death metal. 90s death metal. It's fucking solid, but still death metal.
Just in the 90s.
Yep. Let's see. Cheers, Gavin. Yeah, I think I remember you from the Van Halen stream, man. We try to get the whole array of musical interests on here. As Tony mentioned, Faith No More was the last band I discovered.
That was a good one.
Which, Mark, you're a fan of Faith No More. What's your favorite Faith No More album?
That's hard. Probably The Real Thing.
That's a good call. That was my number 3, but that's a good call.
It's off the top of my head. I'd have to do one of these spreadsheets to know for sure.
That is the only way to find out. I agree. And then number 4 for Zach. So cheers to Tony and Kevin, though, and everyone. But all right. So leaving 1990, we go to 1991. Actually, this is a pretty quick turnaround. October 1991.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Human. Which here, Mark, you got it. I got it. As I said, this was the first Relapse reissue that I purchased. Was the Death. Is yours just a black vinyl?
I believe it's a black vinyl. I think it's a Relapse. Yeah, it is Relapse Records right here.
Yeah, cool. Once again, cool packaging though. Like I even enjoy the stickers on the vinyl.
You got this. This is just pictures of what is nice. I like looking at them, but
that's one of the reasons why the Relapse ones are so good. We already got your ranking. Frosty's. This is Frosty's number 1. Interested to hear everyone else. Here, I'm going to pull out mine real quick. Which, by the way, is yours embossed? Mine has this like embossed lettering.
Mine is not embossed.
Oh.
It's just flat.
It's not a competition, but look, it's embossed and it's embossed and shiny.
Yes, it is a competition.
Everything's a competition. And then I don't know what you would describe this vinyl, but thankfully Relapse does for me. They wrote down bone white and bronze merge. So
merge.
Yeah, this is my merge vinyl.
Oh.
Yeah, this
sort of like a one side and then they smush them together.
It's definitely cool how the record plants and stuff do make these, because it's like
It's just
different colors of
dyes in the vinyl, right?
Mhm. But then they all
together.
end up a little different, you know. Like there's no just depending on how much of each color is in there. So I do enjoy some colored vinyl. Let's see. This is Zach's number one too. Second favorite death metal album of all time. Fuck yeah. All right, Mark. You ready, buddy?
Yeah. This one I don't have notes for because I've listened to this.
You don't need notes for
out
this
of all of them. It is one of those. I'm gonna have to correct these numbers down at the bottom probably, but flattening of emotions. It starts off just with the drum intro, right, and then
yes, in a very like,
and then
it builds,
and I love all the. I can't do them off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. The riffs he does, the sort of
the leads,
movements of the music, if you will, if you don't mind me being poetic.
Go ahead.
And then the lyrics, as always, are good. This one, it is funny because I think this album and then the future albums, his vocals on these albums were harder for me to understand, right? But that also made me more invested in the song since I was trying to understand it in a way. Flattening of emotions, I give an 8. It's a strong start. Something you may notice is I typically give things lower points than Logan, just in general.
You're stingy.
I am somewhat stingy with my points. But there are 3 10s on here. We get Suicide Machine, which I just love with its
Dude, the chorus.
Suicide Machine.
How long the pain?
Yes.
How long will it last? Suicide Machine.
Yeah, it's sort of I like it. It's good. Together as one. All these are great. Secret Face. And how he spirals, like how when you go out of the chorus, it'll spiral out into with the guitar work and with the sort of
like the
very
drum
fluid
performance
with
and
the drum performance and the guitar work. They all do a lot of, I guess, chord progressions, or they go up and down with playing the whole fretboard, I guess, or they do the whole. Everyone's like trying to do a solo in and out all the time, if that makes sense.
It does.
There's a lot of interesting technical work, I suppose, in the instruments, which is one of my favorite things about this album as well. Because, and it sort of continues, and then we have an instrumental on this too, which Chuck is taking a break, I guess, or I don't know if he has. Does he do instruments on this album?
Yeah, he plays guitar.
Guitar.
So he does the guitar work on here, but I will say that the instrumental, I believe, is born out of the rhythm section jamming.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to introduce the lineup here, but I will mention it when I get to my section. But yeah, Steve DeGorgio and Sean Reinhart on rhythm. Basically, I think wrote Cosmic Sea.
So we have Lack of Comprehension is a good one. See Through Dreams. We're getting through where I just sort of list off the songs. I can't specifically state the specific thing about the specific song that I like, to be honest.
Yeah, it's death metal for you.
But See Through Dreams is great. Cosmic Sea, It's a good instrumental. He does. It's not their best instrumental, but there's not much competition for that either. So it's a good song. Vacant Planets is a good closeout to that whole album. And then I didn't put it on here, but I have God of Thunder
and rock and roll and rock and roll,
which is a
spell you're under.
I like that. That's a good one too. But
that
anyway,
if you didn't know, that is a Kiss song.
Yes,
you did. Sorry.
Yes, we probably talked about it before.
Yeah, for some reason I don't remember.
So basically, total, I want to give it a 9. It's an 8.9 right down here, but it's a 9 here. So, and 9's pretty good for me. That's like primo de la primo.
Are you a listener to give albums 10 out of 10s? Or
Not
are you
really.
do you prescribe of the belief that there are no 10 out of 10 albums and perfection is impossible to achieve?
If there is a 10 out of 10 album, I haven't listened to it, but there might be one. I'm still looking.
I wish you luck. But
yeah, I do. It's very difficult to get a 10 out of 10 album from me.
I like to enjoy music and like to give out 10 out of 10.
It's probably
so
much easier to get a 9 from me than a 10. Just in general.
Well, yeah. But because I don't think you've given a 10 out of 10. And I agree with Kevin on here. Rush does have one or two. Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres are both on that level.
I haven't really listened to Rush much, mainly just 2112, right? The album, but
we got some homework for you, my friend.
I do. Yeah.
So where does this one rank? You gave it a 9.
Funnily enough, it still ranks at 4.
Are you kidding me? This is your 4th?
Yeah. It's a 9.
Holy shit.
It's a whole step up from Spiritual Healing, which was an 8.
I'm so impressed right now because
so
oh man,
there's more to see later.
I love talking about 10 out of 10s because I enjoy giving out that score. So even if like an album is not perfect, if I feel like it connects with me, and this will tie in later into the stream because I will dole out the score. It's a 10 out of 10. So I'm here for anyone's perfect score. Like I actually agree with Tony. Rust in Peace is a 12 out of 10.
Rust in Peace. We haven't done a Megadeth ranking.
That would be a long and difficult road right there.
I'm not looking forward to the later albums, but
that's what I mean.
The Rust in Peace would be good.
Super Collider. 13.
Oh.
But it would all be worth it just to talk about Rust in Peace for sure.
Yeah.
All right, but for now we're here to talk about Human. I'm sorry, I get distracted sometimes. So yeah, I forgot to mention the lineup earlier. Kind of went over it a little bit. Sean Reinhart and Paul Masvidal, who are both part of the band Cynic. Mark, have you heard of Cynic? Oh man,
I don't think so.
They were ahead of their time. They had an album come out in 1993 called Focus, which was it was progressive death metal, straight up. But I think Chuck really wanted to be where those two were at as players. And in my personal opinion, the jump from Spiritual Healing to Human is the biggest jump of progress in Death's catalog. It's like light years ahead of
that's definitely
Spiritual
true.
Healing. This is almost an entirely different band. And an
future,
entirely different genre, I think.
Just riff off of Death. I mean, off of Human. Like,
just the feel of it, the flow. And you used a word in your synopsis of it, which I fully agree with. You said fluid.
Yeah.
And this album it's flexible, loose, fluid, dynamic, and it feels kind of alien and otherworldly to me. these were all just different taglines I wrote down. And I think just the fact that there were so many other amazing players on this album, and probably Chuck might have been the weakest musician in this lineup, which is
Yeah.
an interesting thought, because on the other 3 albums, I'm sure Chuck was, miles ahead of everyone with his prowess and his ability to play music and write songs. But I think here he actually is probably outgunned by Paul Masvidal and definitely Sean Reinhart and DiGiorgio, and yeah, they're at least equal, and it contributes to such an interesting and unique feel for this album. It's one of a kind, and I personally think that this album jumps from being death metal to we're talking either technical death metal or progressive death metal. You got to give it an adjective, I think. And this, to me, is the first either technical or progressive death metal album. It's pretty big and influential for the scene. So, yeah, the songwriting here is unique and interesting. The transitions are so fluid, and just the lead work on the album, I think, is my favorite of the Death catalog. The lead and the guitar solos are actually my favorite as well. Just they create such a unique vibe and otherworldly atmosphere to it. So I do enjoy it. I think DiGiorgio's bass is also a pretty impressive part of it. Historically, it's like supposedly he was mixed too low in the studio, but I kind of like where he fits in the mix, because it's not like it's too loud. You can hear it if you want to, but at the same time, it's not taking away from your enjoyment of the tracks. Yeah,
fairly frequently, where it's like don't like, you can sort of hear it above.
He really helps with the transitions of like in the songs, like Suicide Machine especially. There's like this section where it kind of fades out, and then you get this drum and bass pattern that goes into the chorus, and it's just like, Chuck is kind of singing over top. Yeah, great. Just great songwriting and like the small details that kind of make that track. So, but yeah, the momentum is here for this album, and the fact that, not counting God of Thunder, it's only 34 minutes. I think that's like the icing on the cake right there. It's a quick take. Let me dive into my spreadsheet real quick. I also have 3 10 out of 10s.
Oh,
we only overlap on 1 though. That's interesting. Flattening of Emotions is a great opener.
It is a good opener.
The fucking drums, and then the chorus is actually pretty catchy to me.
Yeah.
Like Flattening of Emotions. And Suicide Machine, one of the best songs in the Death catalog. I think the most just anthemic chorus out there. Secret Faced, Together as One, and See Through Dreams kind of blend together for me as like these songs that help to push the album forward. The Lack of Comprehension is separate in my take. I was going to say that though they blend together and that they all have a similar feeling to it. Except I do like the concept and the vibe of See Through Dreams the most,
because he's like, I always got the impression that he was like in a coma or something, or and he visited places in his dreams.
That's the other thing. Lyrically, this album is just kind of out there and a little bit nebulous. Like, I probably pay attention to the lyrics the least on this, and I kind of enjoy it for that fact. I'm a big fan of Cosmic Sea. I think it helps to break up the songwriting or the track listing perfectly, and I love the bass tone. It's a great place for Steve DiGiorgio to kind of shine and show off his prowess, and it helps to contribute to that alien and out there atmosphere for me. Vacant Planets, what a song. The riffs on that song are top notch. Yeah. Yeah. Album art is 9. Production, I still really like it, and the album construction. So we're just talking all 9s on here for that. It gives me like a 9.10 for my ranking, but this is definitely higher. We're
You can
talking,
have it be whatever you want. Yeah.
Exactly. We're definitely talking like a 9.6, and for the overall ranking, this is number 4, right behind the Leprosy. So a big album, and yeah, one that I think was extremely influential for the scene. So
it is the same ranking that I gave it. 9.4, number 4 out of the
number
total.
4. So finally, we're in line. Yeah. Let's see. We got Nick would give Disrupt 10 out of 10. Sepultura 10 out of 10. Yeah. Yeah, give it a shot, man. I think the later albums maybe would take more listens if you're like, not as familiar with the discography. All right. So going from 1991, we're jumping to 1993, June 1993.
Okay.
Individual Thought Patterns. So we kind of have a big shift in lineup as well. I want to mention that real quick. We lose both of the Cynic guys. Sean Reinhart is out and Paul Masvidal is out, and they're replaced by Gene Hoglan on drums. And no actual other guitarists, but they get session guitarist Andy LaRock to play. Marc, are you familiar with Andy LaRock?
No.
He's the guitarist for King Diamond. If you know like Abigail and stuff. He's a phenomenal guitarist. So
I guess I am familiar with King Diamond. So,
but yeah, here we go. We got Individual Thought Patterns in this one. One of the ones that I have.
Go over it first. I need to go.
Yeah, I will. I'll be right back. So here, let me talk about my physical media collection. We got the Relapse reissue. Once again, a big fan of their reissues. And then this is one of those fancy vinyl represses too. Also got the emboss. Show that off a little bit, I guess. And then let's see, Relapse over here. They call this the Baby Pink with Splatter. I don't know why they thought saying Baby Pink on a death metal album was a good idea, but that's what they call this color variant. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty neat. Like, this is a favorite colored vinyl, I think, that I have in the collection. So, all right. Got to re-sleeve on camera. Sorry, guys. But anyway, to start talking about this one, similar to Spiritual Healing, this one kind of starts with an asterisk of me saying, this album is good, but I feel a certain way about it. To me, this one feels... I mean, it's definitely still a progression, but it's another one that I would say it might have growing pains. Like, Chuck is definitely trying to reach forward in songwriting and trying to be a more progressive leaning songwriter, and at the same time, I don't know if he's fully capitalizing on it. It doesn't quite mesh in the same way, and a lot of the songs kind of blend together for me that I would rather not happen on a Death album, because mostly Death I can distinguish every track from another, but on here this ends up being one where some of the songs kind of blend together, and it just feels like they're least inspired and maybe most sterile. Like, there are still jaw-dropping moments on this album, but they're just not as big as on albums like Human and basically every other album in the discography. Yeah, there's a couple cats crawling around here. Yeah, I think we might all be in agreement on this one. So I think this one is a little bit longer too, or it feels, this is the one Death album where it feels longer than it actually is. It's only 40 minutes at 10 songs, but I swear it feels as long as their 50-minute albums. And I thought there was like 11 or 12 tracks, but it's only 10. I gotta stop slagging on this thing though, because I actually do love this album, and a big chunk of it is some of my favorite material from Death's discography. It's just that, when we're talking about this band, the competition is very high, and yeah, something's got to be number 7. So that is where we enter individual thought patterns. Yeah, to dive into the individual songwriting, some of the best guitar work in Death's catalog is on this. As I said, Andy LaRocque does wonders for the tracks that he's on. You can kind of tell because he pops out of nowhere from like all of a sudden there's just this amazing, like blazing and epic guitar solo that just almost feels alien from the rest of the song, And it's like the highlight. And the story goes, like, and LaRocque is Swedish, right? So these guys are all Floridians. They got him to fly in from Sweden for like a couple days, and he basically shows up at the very end. Like God knows what he was doing, but he shows up at the very end, and in one take, just lays down these guitar solos, just basically without even caring. He's just like, and they basically made it seem like it was magic, which I mean, listening to it, it's definitely the most magical moments. I mean, the guitar solos on, I believe, Overactive Imagination, definitely Trapped in a Corner, and Mentally Blind are phenomenal, and all LaRocque's doing. So, like, when you listen to this one again, Mark, definitely try to hear when these guitar solos just come, because it's like life to this album.
It's interesting because I think those 3 songs you mentioned are my lowest ranked on this album.
God damn. Man. Maybe it's because it feels like there's a random thing there for no reason that doesn't fit in.
Maybe that.
Yeah. I think it has a bit of flair. I will say I agree with Kevin here. We finally get Gene Hoglan on drums, which he's an amazing drummer. We'll talk more about ranking the Death drummers later, but he's up there. I do think he sounds a little restrained on Individual because he just doesn't have his many big moments that he will on the next album that he's drumming on. But on here, you can definitely feel the fact that he is, tuned in. I love his double bass work on every album that he's in, and this is no different. He's got phenomenal, just fast feet and really cool, like hi-hat and ride patterns as well. Let's see. Getting to my actual ranking here. So I think this album opens up very strong with Overactive Imagination and Inhuman Form. Trapped in a Corner is my
number
110. Yeah. It just has that like death magic to it. Like it opens up very like atmospheric and melodic, and then kind of builds from there. And there's a god tier guitar riff also that pops up on Trapped in a Corner. And then as we get later on in the album, I get a little bit more tired. Yeah. This album bogs you down, or at least it bogs me down a little bit towards the end. It's 40 minutes.
It's not that
which is
long.
not no. It feels longer to me, which is always a sign. But I will say that Mentally Blind actually really clicked with me today while I was listening to it. There's these really cool atmospheric sections
Mm-hmm.
that kind of swell that I don't remember hearing, before, and yeah, I really enjoyed. So Mentally Blind was a highlight upon revisiting this. The Philosopher was the big single on it, but it's a great. I mean, it's a good song. It's a great song. I do like the chorus, but it doesn't have the same magic of
Right.
like Lack of Comprehension or Trapped in a Corner on this album. It feels a bit more one note. Supposedly, Mark, this song is about the previous guitar player, Paul Masvidal,
Okay.
like the philosopher. You know so much about nothing at all. So they apparently, I guess, did not end on the strongest note.
Oh,
But
that's too
that's
bad. It's
that's
a good
that's for
song.
you. It
Good song
is,
came out of it.
yeah, yeah. But this is also my least favorite album cover of the,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely not that good.
I still I gave it a 7 actually. Yeah. It it's about the logo.
Oh,
Well, that's the center point of the album cover is the logo,
yes.
which I think is pretty awesome. So, hey Nick, boom, we're on individual thought patterns. Which, speaking of, I already mentioned, but Thralls of Metal did a ranking of the Death Catalog. Nick, where does this one fall in on your ranking? I'm sure you got it memorized. Uh, so for me, like overall, wrapping it up, I would up this score a little bit. It's closer to an 8.5, but not quite there.
Hmm.
And as I said, in the ranking, it's number 7. It's my least favorite.
Okay.
And I do not remember that from your ranking. I can't believe this is your favorite techie album.
What 3 or 4? Okay.
Which means all of the OG death metal stuff
Is above it. Yeah.
is above it. Yeah. All right, Mark,
Take it away.
you are up, my friend.
Overactive Imagination is the opener. All these songs, I mean, there's a lot of speedy songs in their disc, all in their work, but I definitely did notice a lot more very fast guitar work. Like yeah, my notes on this one, a lot of technical guitar work. I give it an 8, which is a very good, solid song. 10, I really like In Human Form. I think mainly it's sort of the riff to it or the grooviness of it. There's
I agree.
which I really like. We have Jealousy, Trapped in a Corner. Both those songs are great songs. Jealousy, I remember a bit more than Trapped in a Corner right now. But Nothing is Everything is probably my favorite track off the album.
Wow.
I give it a 10. Very classical. They do a lot of like sort of, there's a term for it. They do scales and they do uh, a lot more sweeping. There's a word you said, atmospheric, like in Mentally Blind, you said
Yes.
this sort of waviness to it or something along.
I don't
Forget
know
the
if
word.
there's like actual keys or what builds that atmosphere, but there's something that kind of swells.
Well, it's not keys, but it's the, like the B scale or where they basically play up the fret and down the fret, sort of something close along like that, I guess. But
You got the musical background for this. I appreciate it.
I'm not a guitarist at all, but I play piano, and that's what I'm thinking of mainly. But it's a very strong album. I will agree with you that once you get past God damn it, uh,
No, you're good.
Mentally Blind, Individual Thought Patterns, Destiny, Out of Touch. These, I list them all as nines. When I was listening to them, I love them all. They sort of blend a bit. Philosopher, I remember both.
Oh, you gave that one a 10.
I
Look at
like
that.
it. It's good. So this comes out to, technically, this is basically the same score as Human, but it's a 9. I give it an album art because maybe it's recency bias, but I like this. I wanted to put this higher up above Human for this ranking, so I increased the album art quality to get the score, inch it over. But they're technically like the same score. They're both
Yes.
9s.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you on the album artwork. Is one of my least favorites. It's like Leprosy, Spiritual Healing. I didn't like the artwork, but it's good artwork. This, I sort of just don't. It's just messy, I guess, or it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak to me.
They try to go with like the abstractness of Human, you know.
Yeah.
But I like the feel of the Human album cover compared to this. Like this one, I don't know. It's got a lot more personality to it, and it takes a bit more to figure out like what are we even looking at. I mean, we got the Earth down
It's
here,
like a
and,
skull,
this
the back of a skull with a Beth on it. Right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. So less personality, I think, in the album cover. Okay, and where does this stack in your ranking?
Number 3.
You were just moving right along.
Yeah, when I could, well, because it was looking like that anyway. I just decided to, because Human and this one are basically the same brand, right? So I put them in chronological order, just because I can't have them both be 3. I guess
you could. I mean, like it's like with the rating. You know, you make the rules.
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? Be like, you're kicked. But yeah, guys, it's daylight savings.
Daylight savings.
I think we get to sleep in, or I know we wake up later.
Snow skin off my back, Kyle.
Yeah. Thank God it's Sunday. And yeah, Nick, to agree with you, that's one of the reasons why the death ranking is one of my favorite rankings to watch, because you never know what someone is going to have as their least favorite and their favorite. Like, already tonight, there's been a whole bunch of surprises. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone give Spiritual Healing the number 1 pick, but I believe Metal Kev did earlier. So yeah, you never know. But let's see. Moving from 1993, we go another 2 years. So they were pretty militant with the 2-year thing, at least, or if not quicker. March 1995, album number 6, Symbolic. And this is actually the only one on Roadrunner Records. So this does bring me to a point I want to make. So all the other Death albums up to this point have been on Combat or a different label. And Relapse has been able to get the rights and, you know, put it out as a reissue. But for whatever reason, Roadrunner has never given up the rights to Symbolic. So it has never had the proper reissue treatment. And buying Symbolic on record is insane. Like, you look it up, it's like $600 or some shit like that.
Wow.
So they just announced this year that they are going to be putting it out in early May, I believe. So for you people who've been looking to get Symbolic on record, you are in luck. It is coming out, being reissued, I think May 2nd or something like that. So it's this is big. When I saw this, I was immediately intrigued. I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I probably will at some point. Ah, hey, how much you want for it, Brian? If it's shit, I mean, if it's more than $30, I'm out actually. But yeah, Symbolic, 1995, Roadrunner Records. I think here we do a bit of a genre change again. Like this feels like progressive death metal to me. Like no more tech death kind of vibe. Like I would still say Individual Thought Patterns feels like a tech death album, but here this feels like
I
prog,
sort of
a little bit more proggy.
paired this one and in Individual Thought Patterns, which is too long of a title for one thing. But
I agree. You think that they kind of work together?
They sort of make, to me, I would class them as the same genre, and then Human would be by itself.
It's funny. I do that the opposite. For me, Human and Individual Thought Patterns are the tech death vibe, and then this one is by itself. Like I would say, yeah, Human, Individual, tech death. This is progressive death metal feeling, But yeah, to briefly touch upon the lineup, we still have Gene Hoglan on drums, but we introduced new people on guitars and bass, which is interesting here because up to this point, they're the members and the people that have been playing on Death albums have like already had established bands or were very much working with established bands, but these are kind of relative newcomers to the scene. We got Bobby Keebley on guitars and Kelly Conlon on bass. And truthfully, like Bobby was in a band called where do I say it? Metal Storm, I believe. And this might be Kelly's first like appearance on an album. So he's starting to okay, Leprosy's Cavs number one. My bad. Okay. Cheers. Oh, and then I did want to mention Tumbles here before we dive in. So, Marc, join the Discord. One of the things that's been going on in the Discord. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Tumbles here is a straight up power metal guy, but he's been trying to get into death metal one album at a time, and it's been great watching him progress. And he really does a great write up of his thoughts on every album. And initially, he was pitched listening to Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance, and I thought that these were going to be great albums for a new person to death metal. I was like, man, this is going to be a home run, hit out of the park. But I think the progressive nature and how the songs feel a little bit disjointed, they don't feel as cohesive. They kind of hit him in a wrong way. So, like, I'm curious if you felt this way. Obviously, knowing how you only have 2 spots left in your ranking.
I did initially feel it that way, by the way.
Okay.
I remember when we were like a few years ago when I finally got all the Death discography and was listening to it. My first reaction to these last 2 albums was, nah, I'll stick with Human. But
yeah. And it's funny because initially I probably heard these so young, I didn't even like think about it. I just like, blindly just went for it. But upon listening to it these past times, I could see it looking through like the lens of maybe a new listener. I could see how it's like all of a sudden we're going this direction and then it's just whoosh, a different tempo and riff and songwriting choice careens out of nowhere. And it it kind of does take the song in an entirely different direction, which I personally love that. I love the feel. I mean, I know when all the changes are coming, so it's like an
Hmm.
exciting, just like riff change, or you know, yeah, it's like second nature to me. But I could see someone just getting into these albums being put off by it. So I kind of see where you're coming from, Mister Tumbles, and yeah. Oh well, I
Now,
would have thought these would be the perfect introductory death metal albums, but
I do like progressive type, or like,
me
I don't know,
me too. I kind of like songs that are a bit tougher to click with.
like
Oh, see, there's people out there who Symbolic is their least favorite.
oh,
Also, cheers, Phil. But yeah, all right, Mark, you want to go first on this one?
may as well.
You got it queued up, my friend.
We start off with Symbolic. And it's a good song. I think honestly, it is the worst song on the album, but it's still an 8. And an 8 for me is, as I've said on
It's still good.
previous
I mean,
streams, I have no complaints basically with an 8. 9 is something above the rest. I focus on the solo. Zero Tolerance is great. Empty Words is one of the ones where I start hearing where I like the hook, where I like and Sacred Serenity I love too. Whereas Sacred Serenity, I think I love it because it's more proggy, and then Empty Words, I think I like the hook where he sings. I think it's like empty. He just says empty words, or there's. I don't remember the lyrics, to be honest. I have this right here. I have the album. So let me look it up since I can, and I'm killing time until Logan's back. Yeah, no escaping from these. Yeah, exactly. So it is what I remember. I was just talking about Empty Words and Sacred Serenity. They're both 10s for me. Logan?
oh, nice. Sorry.
And but they're 10s for different reasons. Like Sacred Serenity I liked because of the sort of the songwriting, the guitar work and the instrumentation, right? I enjoyed that of Sacred Serenity the most, and that's what makes it a 10. Empty Words, I enjoyed the chorus the most and sort of the lyrical aspect of it, which is what made that song a 10. So they're both probably like the two different approaches, but I like both of them. A Thousand Eyes is also good, sort of in the lyrical vein as well. Crystal Mountain is the third 10 on this album.
Yeah, that's a
And
good song.
is sort of psychedelic almost.
It's got the acoustic guitar like almost
Yeah,
playing over top, which is such a cool addition.
it's very nice. It sort of evokes, I don't know why specifically, but it has that more like crystal pinging noise, maybe. Evokes that, at least in my mind. Misanthrope, everyone hates men and humans. I mean,
Yeah.
Perennial Quest is both these are good, solid closeouts. There aren't any bad songs on the album at all, in my opinion. I do like the progressive nature of it. I like how they all work together, and this is one of the ones where I enjoyed it more as an album than I did when like I often do playlists. Randomly a death song will come up. I enjoyed these songs better sequentially like this than I did when I randomly, I hear them out of order, out of context. So for this one, total ranking 9.25, 9.25 is what I would like it to be. So it goes down to a 9.1, but it's a 9.25, really. This artwork, to me, it's sort of in the same vein as the previous one, but now they have the sort of like abstract art elements, right?
Yes.
But it has more character to it. It has like the ghost hands and the human figures and the big eyeball sort of splurting out of the.
I like this like triangle it kind of makes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I quite like it. It's using the elements of the previous album cover in it. It's more interesting, basically. It's good. And that's
so.
To be honest,
where are we at? What is this? Oh,
number 1.
Ah, wow!
It was very close, very close to being perfect. A perfect chronological order.
Marc breaks the sequential order for Symbolic to be number 1. I love it. Nice. That was a very good breakdown of this. Yeah, for me. So I kind of to open up talking about this. I feel like what Master of Puppets is to thrash, and what Number of the Beast is to heavy metal. Symbolic is to death metal. Like it's the album, which I don't know what Nick's saying here. Symbolic is the dark horse. Man, when I was first getting into death metal, Symbolic was like all people would talk about. I heard, as I said, tracks, the title track and Crystal Mountain before I heard any other death song or album. They were just like everywhere. People were talking and covering these songs either on drums or guitar. And this album just had like a mystical kind of energy about it back when I was getting into death metal and metal. And yeah, it was definitely a big find. This was a nice price books find for me. And then the one I gave you was my Edward McKay's copy.
Yeah.
Which I hope it plays all right.
It's okay. I mean, my speakers barely worked anyway, so.
Well, then that's the next project, man. I gotta get you new speakers.
Yeah, I got like them wired in, and there's like duct tape on the back holding the wires into the subwoofers. And
we'll talk about this after. I want to hear more. But yeah, I mean, this album to me just transcended the genre and felt bigger than death metal and the other albums in the Death catalog. And as I said, I don't think this is straight up death metal. We're definitely talking progressive death metal territory. It's a new era for the band, and the second biggest leap, in my opinion, was songwriting only compared to, spiritual healing to human. Which is fun because you said it wasn't. You kind of lumped this one with.
I sort of thought
individual
it
thought
reminded
pattern.
me of individual thought patterns. Yeah.
Like for me, the songwriting just feels like leaps forward. Individual has such a more straightforward and I don't want to say narrow-minded, but not the same approach to Symbolic, which feels a bit more progressive. And I don't know when Chuck got, the control denied bug and started wanting to leave death, but I know for a fact he definitely did. Like, I didn't realize this until after getting into this album and the next one, but he didn't want to write death metal anymore. He was very much interested in writing progressive metal and kind of leaving the harsh vocal and the death metal genre behind. It felt like it was a box that he was stuck in. And I think you can definitely hear that transition on this, where he's writing more complex songs. There's bigger moments on here. There's more emotive moments. Like a track like Empty Words is just such a, it's got such a hook and such a emotional vibe. And same with like the songwriting for Thousand Eyes. Like it even ends on him just screaming, "We're all enslaved now," and that just sounds a bit more prog even in nature than like a death metal song, you know, like or a straightforward track. And I still think this is a death metal album, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he was already done with death as a band. But cheers, Courtney. Thanks for joining in. Keep on rocking in the free world, right? Yeah, I think, as Nick says, you know, we're nearing that point where he didn't want to be associated with death metal. I mean, I don't think we're quite there yet, but this is definitely the beginning of maybe, or the middle of that thought. Still, to highlight the other musicians in this band, this is my favorite Gene Hoglan performance, period. I think the drumming on here is phenomenal. My second favorite drum performance on a Death album. His double bass work is amazing. Just listen to 1000 Eyes or Misanthrope. This album does start this theme with Death where they do like these start-stop things. You know, it'll be like the riff will go and it'll be like you almost get whiplash. I personally love that, right? It's like Misanthrope, hater of all mankind. There is some hope, you know? And like the riff and all the instrumentation follows that. And like the stop-start riffing, I personally am a big fan of. But if you're not a fan of that, I could see why you would not enjoy either the next two albums, you know?
But I think, I mean, there are some precursor elements to that in earlier songs. In their earlier albums. But it's only like one or two.
I just think it's a common trope on here, and like even they use it as a segue, you know, like that'll be how they jump from the verse section of Empty Words into like the chorus, you know. It'll be like guitar solo, and then there's no escaping from those haunting. So, but yeah, cheers to Brandon. I hope your Australian soccer team plays well tonight. Nick, always a pleasure, man. Cheers, bud.
AFL is Australian football?
I believe so.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you know.
What is... Well, yeah, I don't know. I thought they did like rugby or something, but I'm not sure.
I was going off of... what was told previously. I think he likes soccer. But yeah, this one definitely hooks me on an emotional level as well. And some of these songs are just emotionally heavy. I did remember correctly. Cheers, Brandon. Yeah. So this one definitely just it seamlessly clicked with me as well. Like I picked up this album as if it was nothing. It was an easy one for me to digest and to put into rotation. And yeah, I love the nature of this album. Let's dive into the ranking here real quick. Oh no, there it is. A lot of tens on this. A lot of tens.
1-8, Sacred Serenity.
Yeah, Mark, I was so surprised you gave that a 10. Like, what was the feeling for that again?
It's just these elements where I'm like, you know, I'm listening to it, and I think it was like the prog instrumentation elements to it. Like it wasn't the chorus, it wasn't the words. It was mainly the guitar and the drums and the
Like
how
for
it
me,
sort of
it's
connected.
the most underwhelming song on the album.
It's funny because I don't think there are like any real
I was about to
riffs or
say
any real, but it's sort of just like it's more like a classical like
what like
composition piece or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's you're right. It's not like a real riff driven song from what I remember.
no, it's not. It doesn't have the big moments that a lot of the other songs on this album does. But for me, I still wouldn't have the album without it. And this is why I think 10 out of 10 albums exist with like tracks that are not
Hmm.
10 out of 10. They help to like cushion it out. I don't think you can have banger after banger after banger. I just don't feel like
Right.
that exists realistically. So you need like these songs that kind of help
As spacers, right?
as spacers to make the real like spine tingling, game changing songs feel bigger and better. And to me, there are two tracks on here that have this purpose. It's definitely Sacred Serenity and Without Judgment. And
Hmm.
they help to push, I think, the songs that come before and after, into a higher level, just because you can tell there's a difference in songwriting between Sacred Serenity and 1000 Eyes. It's a giant step up to me. Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of Symbolic. Symbolic and Crystal Mountain are those songs that maybe they're overplayed. Like I don't know if I necessarily need to hear them again, but at the same time, I've still heard I've heard them like 3 or 4 times within the past week, and no issue there. But yeah, they're awesome. Know them like the back of my hand. Zero Tolerance, slower, but there's this like killer guitar solo in like the
Hmm.
second half of the song, which is like this jolting stop start thing, which really it kind of shocks the blood and wakes you up. And I like the lyrics on the song as well. Empty Words, what a fucking song, dude. That is a 11, 12 out of 10 track. Um, the build up to the chorus and then the final like chorus with like the rhythm and the riff structure in it, where it's like boom, ba 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 boom, ba 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 ba.
Hmm.
That's yeah. I don't know. It's a perfect song for me. As I said, I basically agree with 1000 Eyes as well. I think that's also a very relevant song to today's day and age.
Hmm.
It's basically you're
Yeah.
trapped in a panopticon. You're walled in by technology and a lack of freedom. And yeah, it's just it's a good song. The lyrics actually, as I said, are very relevant. Um, yeah, I do think Perennial Quest is a bit on the longer side and doesn't quite in the album on like the highest note, but I like the lyrics a lot. And yeah, the vibe is just it's still a good way to close out the album. And for me, I agree with the album artwork. I think the production's perfect, and I think how they constructed the album is perfect. And though you say this is um your spreadsheet tells me it's a 9.7, this is a 10 out of 10. This is a perfect album for me. I would not change a single thing. As I said, the albums that were the songs that are not tens still serve a purpose and help bridge everything together. And
Hmm.
I really would not, you know, tweak this album at all. And yeah, definitely has a emotional spot for me. So definitely perfect. But it's only my number two.
Oh,
We got some variety here. So that only leaves one
Have we heard
album
your
left.
number one yet?
No, not yet. And there's only one album to go. So spoiler alert. Yeah. That leads us to The Sound of Perseverance, which this is a redone cover, by the way. I did you use the original in the
I don't know.
spreadsheet?
I used probably, yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
I usually try to, but
the redone cover is definitely a bit better than the original. So
yes,
this one is actually looks like a painting.
if I had seen that cover, maybe that one would have been number one. I don't know.
It's still like kind of a weaker one, but I will say the original is just, it has this like turn of the century like digital feel to it.
Yes,
and
it looks exactly like it reminds me of like Colony or like the cover of those In Flames covers.
Colony's a good one. Even Clayman kind of fits with just the devil figure in the background. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the original cover as much, but this new one's good. Another phenomenal Relapse repress that I want to mention. This is the only one that is on double LP, also embossed. Look at how how fancy we are. I know. This is how I get clout. To mention the vinyl color, this is another variant. They call it's Blood Red and Gold Merge. Blood Red and Gold Merge.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
the gold didn't really work with that one.
No, it kind of comes out a bit more brown than gold. Yeah. I still enjoy it. I think it might be my least favorite of the color variants that I have. But hey, I'm not complaining. Although I guess I just did. But yeah, so we get another lineup change, and to kind of wrap up when this came out, this was August 31st, 1998. So we jumped 3 years from the release of Symbolic. So the lineup, we've got also another 2 new players, Scott Clandon on bass and Shannon Ham on guitars. So these guys are also kind of relatively new to metal. But then on drums, we've got Richard Christie, which, Mark, does that name ring a bell at all to you?
I am not good with names. I'll just say this.
He was on a couple Iced Earth albums. That's why I bring him. He was on Horror Show, and
the only name I really remember is like Schaefer, I think, is the only name.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Barlow, was that the singer?
Yeah, that was the singer on, I believe, their couple newer releases.
But I do love Iced Earth, so I just never remembered like musician names.
I mean, he was only a drummer on a couple albums, so I was just curious. But yeah, so 1998. This is their final full-length album. What is your take? Let's get the spreadsheet up here. See the official ranking.
Now, if you have a decent memory, you might be able to realize that this number right here is actually bigger than Symbolic.
Yeah, Mark,
that's because this is also number one. Both of these, I couldn't separate them. So they're both the best song. The best album, I mean. And then now that that's out of the way, we start off with, there isn't an 8 on this album, actually.
Is it all 9s?
It's 9s, and then there's 3 10s. So we start off with Scavenger of Human Sorrow. This is definitely a lot more prog, a lot more. There's almost some sort of like in Spirit Crush. I think it's Spirit Crusher. You get like a little uplifting, like da 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 da, like and then it comes down.
I like the build before it gets to the boom boom
yes.
boom 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 boom. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's very Spirit. Spirit Crusher is a 10 out of 10. Very good song. Story to Tell I also love. But all of them are great in just how it is, just how the instrumentation sort of backs up his vocals, right? Which is one of the things that I initially didn't like about this album, but was fixed on future listens. And it's sort of, it is one of his, I think maybe his shrillest, where he's sort of his highest, his peakiest. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has. It's a screech more than like a growl or something.
Which I'm not unaccustomed to, since power metal and prog have something of a reputation in that regard.
Which I feel like that's what he was going for, right? Like,
yeah, it was.
Yeah,
probably, especially with compares to Control Denied, which I think this is. It reminds me a lot of, or they're somewhat similar. Besides the vocalists, and there's other.
This was basically supposed to be a Control Denied album, and actually, all the people who played on this did have a hand in the Control Denied album. So yeah, it makes sense if you feel that prog element or that even power metal kind of vibe to it, because I think that's where Chuck's heart was when writing this material.
To Forgive is to Suffer. I like. The instrumental is honestly also great, because I don't normally give instrumentals. Sometimes they can be a bit
Voice of the Soul,
bland, but Voice of the Soul is great. Flesh and the Power of the Whole is great. I guess I skipped it to go down to Forgive is to Suffer, I think. But all these, I'm trying. One of those, Flesh and the Power it holds, I was trying to figure out what it was about. Is it about the power of flesh, or about how weak the flesh is? Does it hold a lot of power, or is it not powerful at all? But
I think it's like separating it, what the dualism, like the flesh being different from the spirit.
Soul. Right.
So the power of the flesh and its ability to be swayed by, substance and weak pleasure. I think I feel like that's what it's about, and so I guess the inherent weakness of the spirit, just because it's subjected to the power of the flesh, because what is it? Beware the flesh and the power it holds.
Yes. This is, it's very progressive. Or A Moment of Clarity, and then we wrap it up with Painkiller, which is here because it was on the official track listing, right?
It is.
I don't think
this is a part of the album. This is not like Gods of Thunder. This is a part of
which is a good.
Chuck wanted to put it out as.
I mean, he does a good job of does a good Judas Priest cover.
And Chuck starts to sing a little bit on it too, which is kind of cool. I kind of wish we would have gotten to see what like him clean singing would have been.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, this is a 9.3, a 9.25 is basically what I ruled it as. So it's tied with Symbolic. Uh,
But
technically, this
you said
production quality.
Symbolic was number one, though.
Technically, this is number 2, but
There
because
we go. See?
this production quality and album construction bring it down or whatever,
Yeah.
down to a 9.1, which I believe is lower than Symbolic was. Or so
I mean,
they're basically
that's
tied.
fair. Like it's all about the details, you know. Like
Hmm.
so, I'm putting this as your second favorite. They can see
Yeah,
like
that's why I
like
have this 8.12, or I go to the tens
yeah,
place or whatever to break ties on purpose. Right? That's the whole point.
exactly. Every point counts. Um, yeah. For me, Sound of Perseverance. I kind of have to put an asterisk in front of this. You know, this is a very nostalgic album for me. Uh, this was an absolutely huge album. First year of college, I was in Mississippi. This is when I found this, and I have just wall to wall memories of listening to this by myself, just driving, from college, going to the Mississippi House. I have tons of memories. I used to blare this all the time in the atrium, Mark, and cranked
Yeah.
to the fucking max. And yeah, like no one else in the house, just me. it was it was an absolute blast. So I have had so much fun with this album, and it's probably one of my favorite albums of all time. It's I think probably top five, which is definitely saying a lot. I I love it. I get the complaints with the songwriting feeling disjointed and like the riff structures being like, it segues from one to another and can give you whiplash. Maybe I get it, but I'm just so comfortable and familiar with it. It's straightforward and just simple. Like you remember Tyler, right? Tyler Forget helped me
So
move down here.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I, I,
Yeah.
I sent him Spirit Crusher and Scavenger of Human Sorrow. He's like, this song sounds like 5 songs jammed into one. Oh man.
I don't know. I don't.
I mean, I get it. I get it, but I choose to ignore it, I guess, and just power through with this
It's
being
just from.
a masterpiece, in my opinion.
I really like Spirit Crusher.
Dude, Carbon Stars nails it. Spirit Crusher is a 12 out of 10, a
Yeah.
15 out of 10. It is. I mean, we're gonna talk about our top 5 favorite Death songs, but it's number one for me. It's my favorite Death song. The chorus,
Hmm.
the build up to it. It starts out so sinister and haunting with like the bass, and then like the riff comes in
Well,
that kind of, and then it
it's
slows down for the chorus. Like,
yeah. I have it stuck in my head right now, but I can't.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough to sing along with Chuck sometimes.
The guitar, the lead up.
Yeah. I will admit that I don't know if I could see this as a death metal album. Like you kind of already said that like it feels like a prog metal album, and I do think this kind of is a prog album because there's not like these like chunky down-tuned death metal portions or like these blast beat sections, and it lacks certain elements I think you would look for from a death metal release, but it makes up for it in just pure riffs. And I'm a riff fan. I love riffs. That's what got me into metal, I think originally were like
Hmm.
powerful guitar riffs, and the best guitar riffs that have been written by Chuck are on The Sound of Perseverance. I mean, Scavenger of Human Sorrow has at least two. Bite the Pain has that's a more melodic track, but it's got some story to tell. You really like that one? I don't know. Yeah, I still have to do a track listing, so I gotta stop. Yeah, I enjoy Chuck's vocal performance, and finally to kind of wrap up the individual performances, I think Richard Christie does the best drum performance on any Death album on here. He just sounds so energetic and all over the place in like a good way. Like he will do these crash accents to kind of give extra, intensity to a moment, and he's always moving around so much. It sounds like a fucking octopus playing the drum set. It's extremely cool, but then at the same time, it's not a mess. It's very well controlled. So yeah, yes. Richard Christie is just a phenomenal drummer, and he goes above and beyond on it with this. So yeah, to kind of get into my ranking, it's gonna be similar to the Symbolic, where it's just like, oh,
whoa, there's all tens.
It's a wall.
Wow,
a wall of tens. And yeah, To Forgive is a suffer. Just I don't know, for some reason that one I still really like that one because there's a riff change up in there that hits extremely hard. So
that's what I liked about it. I think I put that as a 10. So
yeah, it's phenomenal. Already talked about Spirit Crusher, Flesh and the Power It Holds, an 8-minute long epic. Phenomenal. I think A Moment of Clarity is a great closer to like the official songs of Death. Like it's probably the most melodic and like drawn out track on here, but I do like how it builds throughout. So for me, that's a 10. I will say that Voice of the Soul, the instrumental, I used to put that on all my non-metal playlists. Like, I would listen to this with mom in the car. I would put this on at the YMCA. I would any time I would be able to put like just music on. Voice of the Soul would come up because typically if people would have an opinion, it's like, oh, this is very beautiful music. It's not it's death metal. It's just a phenomenal instrumental. So it's a 10 for that. And if you look at their Spotify, this is actually their most listened to song by a huge margin. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I like Painkiller. I kind of wish they might have closed with something else as like their final song. I think if they just left
it off and just had moments of clarity.
Yeah, but I've wrapped my head around it being like the final Death song, and to me, it still works.
Cover, and it's a good.
It is.
It's a good song, but Painkiller is a good song. But
yeah, it's a good send off, and yeah, I gave the album art an 8. That's my 1 week 8 on here, but production and album construction's a 10, and this is my other 10 out of 10 for Death, and this is my number 1. So so we got 1A and 1B. This is 1A, Symbolic is 1B, and for you, I guess it's switched around, kind of.
Yeah, basically.
But hey, Kevin, so Left to Die, I've never had the chance to see them live. I don't know if you have, but
what is
one of the recently there's been these tribute bands that have started to play, death sets because Chuck passed away. So we have Death to All and Left to Die. So Left to Die is it's basically the guys who played on the first couple with Exhum's Matt Harvey kind of leading it. And then Death to All is, the last 4 albums in that material. So Rick Raw is my bad. Thanks, Nick. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I would love a chance to see Left to Die. I've never gotten, to be
Hmm.
able to see him live. But personally, I think anything that pushes out the music and the name of Chuck is a good thing. I mean, if they do it in the right way, which from my perspective, it seems like they are. It's like it's still a tribute. It's not like they're
Hmm.
going off on their own way. I mean, could they be capitalizing on like the death love? Sure. But at the same time, how else are you going to see this music in a live environment, you know? I I personally am a fan of both Left to Die and Death to All. And if I had the chance I would see, either. So, yeah, I have you guys seen either of those bands? Because I'd be curious on your takes. I've definitely watched live footage of Death to All primarily because there's some really cool um, players that pop in for the Death to All stuff. Like they got Nick Barker on drums for a couple songs one time, and like the dude from Abysmal Dawn pops up. I don't know. It's fun stuff. I would definitely love to see either of those bands perform this material. So, I mean, unfortunately, like a lot of this classic or these, bands from the 80s and the 90s, we're about to reach that stage, right, where you can't see them live anymore.
Yeah.
So the only way to see them is through tribute acts or something like Left to Die or Death to All. So, um, I think it's just a product of listening and being a metal fan in the 2010s and 2020s, I guess. So, yeah, I'm with you, Nick. Cheers. All right, well, kind of there we go. That was like the Death catalog. I do want to briefly mention Control Denied. It's kind of a tough album to highlight. Like this is where Chuck wanted to
Yes.
go. This is
Hmm.
where his heart was, and he probably wanted to write this for years. And he had demos dating back to 1996, and on this one, which is this is the Relapse reissue,
Hmm.
which to highlight Relapse once again, man, I think this is a phenomenal reissue. 2 discs, has a bunch of demos on it. Um, yeah, he never got to be around for this to actually be released. He died, I believe, or well, this came out in 1999, and he died in 2001. So he did. I take that back, but I think he was already stricken with cancer at the point that this came out. So definitely a tough, I don't know, a sad situation for Chuck, and I kind of feel for him, but I'm glad he was able to put out at least one album in this like just straight up progressive metal vein. And my take is initially I kind of just didn't want to hear it, which is I guess a bad way to look at it. But I didn't want to hear anyone sing over Chuck's music who wasn't Chuck. Basically, I don't want to
Hmm.
hear clean singing. I wanted more harsh vocals, and I just love what harsh vocals can do to a song, But this is extremely well constructed, and the vocalist on here, who's from the band Pharaoh, I believe his name is Tim. Tim something. Let me see. Tim Amar. Yeah, he he actually passed away in 2023. So rest in peace to Tim as well. Yeah. But no, it's a very, very competent and strong vocal performance as well on this. And he
Hmm.
hits a lot of emotional tones. And really, the songwriting itself does feel a bit more, it's not as aggressive, but at the same time, you can tell it's still the guy who wrote, Sound of
Mhm.
Perseverance and Symbolic. Just kind of listening to it a couple times, tracks like Consumed and Expect the Unexpected and Believe are some phenomenal songs off of this. So, like, I don't have a full opinion on it yet, but I'm just excited to dive a little bit deeper into Control Denied, and excited that we got to see kind of where Chuck wanted to go.
Mhm.
You know, I know Mark, you said you listened to this one before even hearing some other Death stuff.
Yeah. So I knew what Death was, or the band. I knew about the band before I knew about Control Denied, but I was listening to a lot of, I guess, Pandora internet radio back when that was big. So this would have been like in high school, probably when 2014 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting into Symphony X and I was listening on the radio, and Control Denied would come up, right? And it was a little too heavy for me at the time, so I didn't get into it. But I did listen to it, and I guess it was technically my first actual listen to Chuck's work. But
Yeah.
I haven't
Sorry,
been able to
there's
pick
cats
up,
in the background.
there are cats
No,
at your house.
well, thankfully, I mean, this is a pretty available thanks
Mm-hmm.
to Relapse. So I could definitely see you digging this, and if I find it for a good price,
Mm-hmm.
it's yours.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands that I haven't kept up with that I listened to a lot in high school.
Dude, that is how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for the final ranking? What is your? I mean, I basically already know it because it was pretty straight. It was pretty straightforward. Just round it off for people who skip ahead to the end.
1 through 5, we have number 5. We have Suicide Machine. Number 4, we have Empty Words.
Ooh.
Number 3, I think we have Crystal Mountain. Number 2, we have Pull the Plug. Number 1, we have Spirit Crusher.
Wow. Damn. I didn't think we were gonna overlap, but shit, we basically did. I wanted to hear your ranking of the albums.
The album ranking. I thought we were doing 1 through 5 songs.
Yeah, we can do that, but we're gonna do that too, but just in one cohesive sentence. Your top, or the 7 death ranking. Sorry, the 7 death albums are
Scream Bloody Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7. Number 6, Leprosy. Then we have number 5, we have, is it Spiritual Healing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason. Number 4, we have Human. Number 3, we have Individual Thought Patterns. Number 2, Sound of Perseverance. Number 1, Symbolic. That's why I'm a symbolic right now.
Aha. See, the answer was in front of us the whole time.
Yes.
For me, number 7, Individual Thought Patterns. Number 6, Spiritual Healing. Number 5, Scream Bloody Gore. Number 4, Human. Number 3, Leprosy. Number 2, Symbolic. And number 1, The Sound of Perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And top 5 songs, man. Number 5, Evil Dead.
Okay.
As I said, that's just such a ripper of a track and so easily catchy. Number 4, Pull the Plug.
Pull the plug.
Number 3, Suicide Machine.
Suicide Machine.
Number 2, Empty Words.
Empty Words is good.
Number 1, Spirit Crusher.
Yeah,
Just
a good one.
The ultimate fucking song, man. What a great track. And man, there we go. Any final thoughts? I wanted to say thank you for, I would say stepping out of your comfort zone and diving into a full death metal discography. Like, what'd you think of it? Would you do it again?
Maybe hold off on another death metal band. No Cannibal Corpse for me yet.
Damn it! They only have like 18 albums, Marc. Come on.
Really?
They're like the AC/DC of death metal. They like to pump them out.
Yeah, I'll hold off on that. But this was awesome. I always love ranking albums.
It's fun,
and it is a good chance to sort of flesh out, what I listen to, because I often get into ruts of just re-listening to things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this gives me extra purpose with my listening, and I will hear things in a different way. Like, I definitely had some different takes on albums and songs from this discography. Yeah, I don't know. Ranking stuff is one of the most fun things you can do with your spare time, I think. So I'm always down for every minute detail that comes with it, and that's why I enjoy doing it with you. We share the longest history together, basically. And you love a good spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is a fun addition to the album ranking. So
I just wouldn't be able to remember anything to be without the spreadsheet.
I have all these notes over here that I keep referring back to, so I gotta write stuff down. But the spreadsheet is concise and in one spot, and sometimes it's tough to look through like a Word document and pick out what you actually want to say. But yeah, always a blast. I'm glad we were able to talk about this because, as I said, one of my favorite bands of all time. And yeah, here's to the next one. We'll have to figure out what it is. But spoiler alert, it might be on your shirt.
Oh, Did we already do Iron Maiden?
Nope.
We didn't?
Exactly.
I have definitely I've already done the spreadsheet.
Exactly. Well, that's why you think we've done it. But there we go. That's the preview. Stay tuned, everyone. I want to real quick.
First spreadsheet I've done.
I want to real quick thank everybody for watching. But so many cool people in the comments. I think Kev was probably the one who stuck around the whole fucking time. Cheers to you, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mike, good to see you, man. Cheers. Appreciated your comments as well. Also Nick and Carbon too. But yeah, always have a blast doing this. Cheers to you all for watching, and drink good beer, listen to good metal,
and get good sleep too.
Oh yeah, hydrate also. Peace.